When my house burned down, I texted the family chat. We're safe, but we lost everything. No reply. An hour later, my brother tagged everyone in photos. Best family weekend ever. Nobody showed. Weeks later, still sleeping in a shelter, my phone exploded with 2 missed calls and a text from Mom. We need you immediately. It's just $5,000. Without thinking twice, I watched the flames lick up the side of the garage like it was a matchstick. That orange glow. The smoke curling into the night sky. The sound of something shattering, probably the old television in the den. All of it blurred into this surreal, slow-motion chaos. I couldn't even hear the neighbors shouting anymore. It was like the world had gone underwater. My wife had already grabbed our son and gotten out. I stayed behind long enough to check every room out of instinct. Dumb. Nothing heroic about nearly choking on smoke trying to rescue things you can't even carry. I grabbed my phone and wallet, and that was it. No clothes, no photos, no wedding album. I left the house barefoot with nothing but smoke in my lungs and a taste of copper in my mouth. By the time we stood across the street, wrapped in scratchy Red Cross blankets, I was still trying to process what had just happened. Firefighters moved around us like clockwork, hosing down the last of the flames, talking into radios, dragging scorch beams from what used to be my garage. I looked down and realized my hands were trembling. I didn't feel scared, just hollow, like something inside me had been carved out. I remember my son asking, "Where's my room?" And my wife didn't say anything. She just knelt down next to him and held him. That's when I pulled out my phone. I opened the family group chat. Me, my parents, my brother Noah, my sister Jordan. It's the same one we use for birthdays, emergencies, sending memes that no one laughed at. I didn't overthink it. I just typed what mattered. We're safe, but we lost everything. Sent. Read. That was it. I expected someone to call right away. Maybe my mom, maybe Noah, maybe Jordan. I expected questions, concern, even some shock. Nothing. The read receipt sat there like a dare. No typing bubbles. No response. Just silence. We were moved to a temporary shelter that night. Some gym turned crisis center. Cots and bottled water, and a woman who kept asking if we had asthma or injuries. I tried to hold it together for my wife and son. My boy fell asleep with his head in my lap. My wife didn't cry. She just kept rubbing her temples like the pressure in her skull was too much to contain. I opened my phone again. Still nothing from the family. I thought, maybe they're asleep. Maybe they're processing. Maybe they're on their way. And then maybe an hour later, I opened Instagram out of some stupid reflex. Just wanted something to look at. Just needed to not feel for a second. First post that popped up, Noah. A full carousel. 10 photos. Him, my parents, my sister, all out at some lake house, laughing, grilling, drinks in hand, matching shirts, even a stupid photo of my dad wearing floaties. Tagged everyone. Captioned, "Best family weekend ever." I didn't even blink. I just stared at it. Every photo clearer than the last. Everyone smiling like they didn't even remember who I was. No mention of the fire. No comment like, "Thinking of Luke," or "Praying for you." They'd seen the message. They'd read it, and they'd moved on. I showed the phone to my wife. She didn't say a word. Just shook her head and looked away. We stayed in that shelter for the next 3 nights. FEMA came. Neighbors brought us clothes, food, even a toy or two for my son. One firefighter came by during his off hours with a pizza and said he'd lived through a fire as a kid, too. Strangers did more for me than my own family. No one from my side called. No one visited. Nothing. Weeks passed. My son stopped asking when we were going back home. He started calling the cot his bed. My wife's parents drove down from Riverside. They helped us find a small apartment. They didn't ask for anything. Her dad handed me a prepaid card and said it wasn't charity. It was respect. That word hit me harder than anything. Respect. I hadn't felt that from my own family in years. I started rebuilding, literally doing odd jobs, labor work, handyman gigs to stay afloat while insurance processed. One night, while cleaning up after helping repair a roof in Echo Park, I checked my phone. 92 missed calls, all from my family chat, and one text from my mom, like it had been plucked from another universe. We need you immediately. It's just $5,000. That was the moment right there. My hands didn't shake this time. My stomach didn't drop. I just stared at that message for a long time and thought they didn't call me when I lost everything. And now they're calling because they want something. That was the last night I ever thought of them as my family. I didn't answer right away. I let the phone sit on the kitchen counter of the tiny apartment we'd scraped together. The screen lighting up every few minutes like it was taunting me. More messages rolled in. From my sister. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. From Noah. It's just a loan. Chill. And from my mom again. We know you have it. Luke, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. They watched me lose everything. Watched my wife and son sleep on plastic mattresses in a shelter. Watched us vanish from the map for weeks and said nothing. Then the moment they needed something, I became visible again. Not as a person, just as a wallet. I'd spent the last 10 years bailing them out of every mess. My brother's failed sneaker brand that I covered the shipping costs for. My sister's nursing program tuition when she didn't qualify for aid. My parents' second car when they didn't want to sell the boat. And not once, not a single time had any of them said thank you without strings attached. They expected it like I owed it to them for existing. So, no, I didn't reply. Instead, I went into my banking apps. Quietly, coldly, I removed them from every account I had once linked them to. The shared savings I had set up for my brother's business emergencies? Closed. The credit card my parents used for grocery runs, but mysteriously had luxury purchases every other week? Cancelled. I pulled my name off the lease I had co-signed for my sister's apartment in Westwood. Let the landlord deal with her from now on. They wouldn't feel it right away, but they would. And when they did, they'd know exactly why. The messages kept coming. Noah tried calling through Facebook Messenger when I blocked him. My sister left voicemails saying, "We're family, Luke." My mom wrote a whole paragraph about how I was changing and letting my wife control me. That last part almost made me laugh. My wife, the only person who stood by me through the fire, literally and metaphorically, she never once asked for anything but respect. Never once told me what to do with my family. But now she was the villain because I wasn't blindly funneling cash into their lives anymore. Then my dad finally reached out. The man who hadn't spoken a word since the fire. He left a message that was barely a minute long, but I listened to every second of it. "You're cutting off your own blood, Luke. You think outsiders are going to care when it counts? You're going to regret this." I played that message twice. Then I saved it. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself. But it was already too late for guilt. Too late for second thoughts. They made it clear who mattered and who didn't. That fire didn't just destroy my house. It exposed everything. Years of being used, dismissed, expected to give and give without question. And now that the ATM was closed, I was suddenly the villain. That night, I looked across the small apartment where my wife was helping our son with homework at the kitchen table we'd gotten for free off Craigslist. I asked her, "Do you think I did the right thing?" She didn't answer. She just nodded once, like there wasn't even a question worth asking. I went to sleep that night for the first time in years, without the weight of obligation pressing into my chest. The next morning, I got a new message from my sister. "You'll be sorry when you need us." I didn't even open it because I finally understood something I'd been too blind to see. I never needed them. They just made sure I thought I did. After I disconnected everything, the silence from them wasn't peaceful. It was strategic. Like they were regrouping, figuring out how to get through the new version of me. The one who didn't cave. The one who'd finally learned how to say no. But it didn't take long before the first crack started to show. My sister messaged again, a full week after the last text, this time with a screenshot of her eviction notice. No greeting, no explanation, just a photo and a 2-line message. I hope you're happy. This is your fault. I didn't reply. That same day, my brother posted a rant on his stories about people who let money change them. I was tagged. So was my wife. He never said our names, but it was obvious. He threw in phrases like fake loyalty and blood is supposed to mean something. Then he linked to a GoFundMe for a new car. After his old one randomly broke down, I scrolled past it and went back to sanding a piece of reclaimed wood. I was helping my wife's uncle build furniture on weekends. Not glamorous, but honest. Paid enough. And it gave me something to put my hands on. Something real. I needed that. Then came the voicemail from my mom. Not yelling this time, just tears. She said they were behind on bills, that my dad's hours got cut, that they never asked me for anything I couldn't afford. She said she didn't recognize me anymore, that I was cold, that I was becoming the kind of man who would die alone, bitter and empty, without family. That one got to me a little. I sat with it for a while, thought about calling her, thought about telling her everything, that I'd been drowning for years, keeping everyone afloat while they poked holes in the boat, that the fire didn't change me. It just uncovered me. But I didn't call because I knew how the conversation would go. She'd cry. I'd feel guilty. I'd offer something, and then I'd be back where I started, broke in a different way. Meanwhile, on our side of things were moving slowly but forward. My wife's parents invited us to live with them temporarily. I declined at first out of pride, but they insisted. You have a child, her mom said. You don't have to prove anything. So, we moved in, and it was the first time in years I felt like someone was truly glad we were there. My father-in-law let my son help him build a birdhouse the first weekend. My wife's mom brought us into every meal like we'd always been part of the family. They didn't ask what had happened with my parents. They just gave us space and support. The contrast was jarring. One morning, while sipping coffee on the back porch, my father-in-law said something I'll never forget. He told me, "You can't set yourself on fire to keep people warm, Luke. They'll just keep asking for more firewood." And he was right. That week, I officially filed to remove myself from the family trust. My name was on too many documents, too many accounts, too many tangled strings from a life I wasn't living anymore. I wanted it all cut clean. The paperwork took a while, but the feeling was instant. I finally felt like I belonged to myself. Then, 2 nights later, something happened I didn't expect. There was a knock at the door. My wife looked through the peephole and stiffened. "It's your brother." I hadn't seen him since before the fire. I opened the door. He looked like hell. Hair a mess, bags under his eyes, wearing some overpriced hoodie I probably paid for years ago. He didn't say anything right away, just looked past me, like trying to judge the life I built without him. Then he said it. "Are you really going to let us drown like this?" I didn't answer. I just stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and walked past him down the porch stairs. He followed. And what happened next, what he said to me in the driveway, was when I realized just how deep the rot went. He followed me down the driveway without saying a word, like he didn't quite know what to do with the version of me who wasn't letting him inside. His footsteps dragged a little, like he expected me to stop and turn around. I didn't. I just walked to the edge of the yard and waited. It was quiet for a moment, just the sound of wind in the trees and someone's dog barking in the distance. Then, finally, he spoke. "They think you're serious this time." I turned toward him. Not angry, just tired. "I am." He didn't flinch. "They're freaking out. Mom's barely talking. Dad's pissed. Jordan's doing her whole victim thing again." I let out a short laugh through my nose. "Shocking." "No, listen," he said. "I didn't come here to beg. I came to tell you something you probably don't know." He paused like he was weighing whether to say it. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I was supposed to come that night when the fire happened. I was already in the car." I stared at him. And Dad called, told me not to go. That stopped me cold. He told you not to come when you knew my house was on fire? He nodded, said not to feed into it, that you were probably just looking for attention, said you'd be fine, that if we showed up, it would just make things worse. Mom backed him up. I didn't know what to say to that. For a second I thought, maybe I hadn't heard him right, but he kept going. They thought you were exaggerating, said you'd guilt everyone into giving you money again. They didn't even believe the damage was real until like a week later. By then, they figured it was too late to do anything. I was silent for a long moment. They saw the photos, I said finally. They read my message. Yeah, he said. They just didn't want to believe it. They said you've always been dramatic. You've always made things about you. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so perfectly them. I give them money for 10 years, and the one time I need something, I'm making it about me. He looked down at the ground. I didn't fight them. I should have. I knew it was real. I saw the pictures, and I still sat in the damn car and turned around. I didn't know if he was looking for forgiveness or just trying to confess. Either way, I didn't say anything. I didn't owe him comfort. Then he hit me with something I really didn't expect. I moved out last week. I looked at him. What? I'm done. Packed my stuff. Left. I've been staying with this girl I met through work. I couldn't do it anymore. They talk about you like you're some monster, like you turned on us. But I see it now. You didn't change. You just stopped letting them take. I didn't know what to say to that. For a second, I felt something weird. Like maybe I wasn't crazy. Like someone else had finally seen it too. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket and held it out. Mom wrote this. Said it was better than texting. I didn't read it. I didn't take it. Not right away. He stood there with it in his hand for a few seconds, then gave up and placed it on the bottom porch step. If you ever want to talk, really talk. I'm around, he said. I mean it. Then he walked off. Didn't wait for a response. Just disappeared into the dusk, like he knew better than to press. I stood there staring at the folded paper. For a long time, I didn't touch it. I thought maybe I'd burn it. Maybe I'd toss it in the trash without reading it. But I didn't. Not yet. Later that night, while my wife tucked our son into bed, I sat on the porch and opened the letter under the porch light. It wasn't an apology. It was worse. Inside were 6 printed receipts. All charges from a medical clinic. My dad's name was on every one. He'd been diagnosed with something. I didn't even know what exactly. The descriptions were vague, but serious. The last line on the final page was handwritten. This is why we asked for the money. No explanation. No context. Just that one sentence. And now I had a decision to make. I don't know where to start. It hung there for a second. I didn't say anything. I just waited. It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard my dad sound unsure of himself. Even as a kid, even when he was wrong, he always said things with the confidence of a man who never second-guessed anything. I was wrong, he said. That was the second time I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't believe the fire was as bad as you said. I thought you were trying to scare us into reacting. I thought you were angry and lashing out. I still didn't speak. Your mother believed it too. We all did. We told ourselves you'd come around like you always did. I didn't even look at the photos. I just assumed. He stopped there. I could hear the background. A low beeping. A murmur. Of some machine. He was in a hospital room. I got diagnosed in April. It's stage 3. I didn't tell anyone for a while. I didn't want you to think I was trying to guilt you into anything. Now that made me laugh. But quietly, bitterly. But then we ran out of options. And when we needed money, your mother sent a message. I got it, I finally said. 92 missed calls. He sighed. I know. There was a long pause. And then, finally, I was wrong about you. You've carried this family for a long time. I saw it as weakness. I thought you were trying to buy love, but you were just trying to hold us together. You didn't stop me, I said. Not once. I didn't want to see it. I wanted the version of you that was useful. I didn't think of the cost. Silence again. Then he said something that would stay with me for the rest of my life. If you never help us again, I'll understand. I just didn't want to go without saying it. You were right. I sat there with the phone to my ear. The early morning sun coming through the apartment window. My son eating cereal at the table behind me. My wife humming softly in the kitchen. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Not in the cruel, cold sense. Just done with needing anything from them. I didn't need closure. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need an apology anymore. The damage was done. The fire had already cleared the land. All I could do now was rebuild. I'll cover the next round of treatment, I said. Once. Directly with the clinic. Not $1 to anyone else. He was quiet for a long time. Thank you, he said. Even now, I don't deserve that. I hung up before he could say anything else. Over the next few weeks, I made the payment directly to the medical center. No fanfare. No conversations. I didn't hear from my mother. Not from my sister. Not from anyone else. Noah kept his distance, but occasionally sent a check-in text. He got a job at a warehouse in Torrance. Started renting a room from a friend. I wished him well, but I didn't invite him in. Not yet. Maybe someday. My wife and I finally found a small house outside the city. Nothing fancy, but ours. The first nail I drove into the wall felt different than anything I'd built before. It felt like I was building a life that was mine, alone. Not borrowed, not bled out for others, not wrapped in guilt or debt. One night, my son asked me if we'd ever go see Grandma and Grandpa again. I looked at him and said, "We're going to make our own family now." Because we had. Through fire, through silence, through betrayal, and finally through letting go. The people who share your blood aren't always your family. Sometimes they're just the first ones who teach you what love is not. And when the smoke clears, you get to choose who you rebuild with. I chose right. The big update. It's been 8 months since the call. 8 months since I stood on that driveway with Noah. 8 months since I read that letter. And 8 months since I wired money into a medical account and told myself that was the end. I never spoke to my father again. Not even to ask how the treatment went. I figured if it was bad, I'd hear something. If it wasn't, well, he could live with the silence he helped create. Since then, everything has changed. And I don't mean that in the dramatic, movie ending kind of way. I mean in the small, slow, difficult kind of way. The kind that feels earned. We bought land outside of Los Angeles, far enough to breathe, close enough for work. It's not flat, not easy to build on, and the soil's crap for gardening. But it's ours. I poured the first foundation slab myself, with the help of my father-in-law and a friend from work. We're not hiring a contractor. We're building it one wall at a time. No mortgage, no timeline, just sweat and wood and patience. I work 6 days a week now, part-time at a fabrication shop, part-time building the house. My hands are always sore, but it's a good kind of tired. The kind that comes from creating, not surviving. My son has his own room now in the rental house we're staying in until construction's done. He picked the colors for his future bedroom walls. Blue and silver, like the sky and robots, he told me. My wife smiled and nodded, already thinking about curtains. She's been solid through everything. She never once asked me to reach out to them. Never once suggested that maybe I was being too hard. She lets the silence stay silent. Not out of anger, but out of understanding. People sometimes ask me about my family. Guys at work? Neighbors? I just say, we're not close, and leave it at that. No one pushes. Everyone has a version of that story. Mine just has a house fire in the middle of it. Every now and then, I get the urge to check their social media just to see. I never do. I've learned that healing sometimes means not looking back, even out of curiosity. I don't know if my dad's better. I don't know if my mom still thinks I'm the villain. I don't know where Jordan lives, or if Noah kept that job. And I don't care. Not out of hate. Just attachment. Because I'm not the guy who needs to prove anything anymore. I'm not the emergency fund, the invisible support beam, the fixer. I'm just Luke now. A man with sore hands, a half-built house, a family that chose me back. And finally, peace. There's one thing I took from all of it, something I remind myself of anytime someone mentions helping family. Money is never just money in a family like mine. It's power. It's control. It's assumed loyalty. If I ever give anything again, it'll be alone, clear, written, and with the understanding that it's not love. It's a transaction. And if they can't accept that, they're not asking for help. They're asking to own you. I've learned to say no without guilt now. It took everything burning down for me to realize that boundaries are built just like houses, one board at a time. And only after clearing away the rot